Guys, so in the past video I was talking about how I had my sick blue set, and I do have a couple of sick risers, and there are actually going to be three bows eventually in that set, and they are the three strong bows that are kind of my favorite strong bows. Now, this is a potential riser that I'm going to use in my red and black set. Here is one of the risers out of it that has already been a bow. In fact, it's got a wood block in the middle, and then it's got these guys on either end, and I can push rods into that, like these guys, and make this a riser bow, and it should actually hold together pretty well. Now, this end, I have an insert, and it's epoxied and all that. It should be pretty solid. On this end, it's solid, and it should be strong enough. This is actually really tough. So I'm going to set that up, and I'll be right back. Hold on. All right, so as you can see, it'll take a set of limbs. I'd like to reinforce that a little more before I start drawing it and shooting it, but it's feather light. I love the grip on these. They're a grip material, and I love them. They're the same as my blue set to the feel. They're just really comfy. And this one's set up perfectly on the angles. It comes really nice to hand. I did a good job on that. It's not going to have a shelf, but it's also set up so not only can I put two limbs into it as a riser, but I can put one rod straight through the middle of it. As you saw, the hole goes straight through the middle, but it's angled. So if I push one through the middle, it'll come out on a slight bow, which is perfect and helps it to hold the angle that it wants. And there's a blocker in there that helps me push it through. So it works out really good. Now, this is three of the bows in this set, and you can see they're pretty well matched in terms of their colors and stuff. And I knew this was going to be a pretty set, guys. So this one, if I were to just put a foot on it and give it a draw, this one's actually pretty light, but it's not feather light. It's actually pretty good. Now, what's really up is this is really a short riser, guys, and you can see the way it kind of sits at an awkward angle. The trick is to a riser like this, you have to get the limb lengths right. And really, I'm going to flip them around and shoot off this side, it looks like, but I still have to reinforce that. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it bowed and kind of let them form into the pockets at the angle they want. Make sure I'm happy with this angle and it gives me a good enough shelf. In fact, I'm not. I want to shoot it with a better shelf angle. So I might bow this back the other direction because it'll give me a better shelf angle. You got to pay attention for all that stuff. But when I look, I see that right here on the corner, I have this really sweet shelf that's minimal. And because it's raised on the edges, when it crosses those two lines, that'll be all that is touching it. That's great for friction. So what I'm seeing here is actually that it's perfect. It's upright. However, I need to switch the limbs because this one is longer and this one is shorter. But putting that aside, that I just threw that together quick so you guys could see it. I'm going to pull out another bow. Now, this one is also locked in. This isn't really moving at this point. It's been very accurate since I built it. And I wanted to show you guys. In the last video, I talked about how this was going to be a bow, and I shot it. And it's done. Like I said, it's just waiting for its sight. You'll see some thread hanging off here, but that's because when I'm done, I actually sew into it in through the middle and lock it on and make it rock solid. And this one's not going anywhere. This one is the same thing where it's sewn in separately once it's applied and then sewn in right through the paracord so that it's solid. So what we're going to show is this guy. Now, isn't this pretty? This is the match for these guys. Isn't that nice? Look at that. Pretty, right? And I mean, really, you guys got to see this one like in the light. It's such a pretty setup. And since, and smooth. And since I have two bows already like this, and one more in the works that's already built, that's three bows like this. And then I have one more set of limbs over there, but that's not the point. I like to have a riser and a backup riser. So I'm going to set this one up as my backup, and this one is actually going to be maybe another bow, maybe not. I don't know if I really need four bows in this set, but at the very least, as you can see, it's got 3 bows. 2 takedown, that one is basically a hybrid where it could be a takedown. You can put limbs in it and it works, or you can put a rod right through the middle, uncut, and it comes out great. It comes out right around a 30-pound bow in this case, and as a full length rod. This one was actually really weak, so it was only about 23, but 24, maybe 25. But now we've really strengthened it by shortening the limbs and putting it in as and using it as a riser. So that works. This one is not a riser. This is the bow with the rod run straight through it. It's thoroughly epoxied in place and then bowed and locked in. This one is, again, a riser, so there's no solid going through. If you look, you can see right inside. And it appears that it's going all the way through, but they're not. They actually meet right about here, and this one comes to about here. And so they come just short by about an inch of each other. But that's good because I wanted a good solid block inside, and it's one piece all the way through. So it does keep it really strong. So that being said, I know that that one is pinpoint accurate, guys. Absolutely pinpoint accurate. So I just wanted to cover a couple of little things. So this one, I actually ran out of little bonums like this for the bottom. So what I did was I took some black foam, just like that, and I cut that triangular piece, and then I stuffed the narrow in first, and then just kept stuffing, and it came in perfect. So there's that. And then on top, I had one of these pieces that I had cut the insert off of and just used the top of it for something. And I noticed when I stuffed it in there, I've noticed before that when you compress them, they kind of take this shape on. And I thought, you know what, that'd fit 2 arrows perfectly. So this time, instead of using a cap that goes over the carbon fiber like here, and again, I've done the same thing here where it's a single arrow holder and then a double. Only unlike the other one where they clank together, this one is really, really nice and holds them tight, 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 which is great when you happen to be holding your best arrows on board. So in my case, I'm just going to pause, and I'll be right back because I'm going to set this up and do some shooting. Hold on. All right, ladies, and all right, we are back. I'm going to switch the light around, give you guys some light on the target. Now, as you can see, this is shot the same day, guys, within an hour of the other one. I'm going to leave the carrot there. I did say in the last video, my goal was to pretty much cut that sucker right clean in half. So, we are going to use this quiver for the first time, and we'll also be using these arrows on this bow for the first time, interestingly enough. But I had a feeling that this one would be perfect poundage for these, because this one came out right about 45 pounds at 28 inches, but it's quite happily drawing to 30, which means these 29.5-inch arrows are really, really, really happy on this bow, guys. They are, okay, hold on. I need to get my heat shrink material going again, because this has moved. And so what you want to do is you want to be really careful about that. So I'm going to heat shrink this back on, and I love this, guys. This is like so easy to make them go back on. You just take your Bic lighter or any other cheap kind you got, Zippo, whatever, it won't matter. And all you do is press it back into place so that they're where you want them. And I'm putting this here for grip, so this will be just fine. And you're just going to, as you can see, I'm not being too careful, but you want to get it good and hot, guys. Now, it's locked in place good and solid, and it's nice and grippy. So, those are good things that make Keith happy. So we're going to put our white fletch down again, because that is what's called for. Also, in some bows, I like to go up underneath the nock. For a 2-finger draw, I actually like to sit underneath the nock, not on top of. I find that's really handy for me. So we're going to try again. White fletch down. And that was a little bit more of a draw than last time. Now it did come up and to the right again. So this time I'm actually going to be really careful, and I'm going to switch that fletching and see how this goes. I've noticed with different shelves, the fletching preference should be different, believe it or not. Only it's more off. So on this one, I can see the tiller is pretty off. I know the nock is locked in, or it was. Now here's the real trick. These arrows are thicker than the arrows that it was originally designed for. So now, I'm going to put those red fletches up like it's supposed to have. I'm going to take a good look at my nock. And I'm actually going to try my best to force it up just a little. Because I have a feeling that's at fault. Now I'm going to check my tiller. And I see that it is just a touch off, guys. It was actually quite a bit off. But it's been a really long time since I've shot this bow, and it's just been sitting. But like I said, you kind of get to know the setup that your bow wants after a while, right? So, hold on. We'll try this again. Oh yeah, there you go. That's a lot better, and we're not quite done yet. It's coming in exactly at the elevation that I want, which is, I aimed right here. So if it comes here, that's beautiful. And it did come still a little bit to the right. So I'm going to set that up again. And all I'm doing when I'm making my adjustments, so I see it came a little to the right. I'm going to look. I see that one of these isn't as much over to the right as the other, so I'm going to step through. I'm going to grab hold. I'm going to make sure this is really tight and slide that nock over just into the position that I know it needs to be. Now we're going to try again. And now we should be pinpoint, bang on accurate. Also, I've experimented with poundages of bows for these particular arrows, and I found that the red set was intended to be my lighter bows, guys. My heavier bows is the blue set. So this is obviously a case where these arrows really prefer the lighter bows. But the lightest bow in this set is 30 pounds, and this is the strong bow in that set. And at full draw length, it's well over 50. So now it did come a tiny bit high there. I did aim a tiny bit high, so I'm going to be more fastidious about my exact precise aim point now, because it's pretty dialed in. And when you're dialed in, you got to be really precise about your aim if your bow is really precise, right? So let's try. I'm going to aim perfect exactly for the middle of the carrot now. Look at that. That was really nice, guys. It may have looked, it was just a little off, but it came to the exact elevation that I wanted. And it nicked the carrot. That is what knocked the carrot out. If I hadn't hit the carrot, it wouldn't have moved. It's pretty heavy. And it's locked in there pretty solid. It's one of the reasons I'm using it. So I'm going to go again. I'm going to aim right for the middle of the carrot, and I'm going to try and be perfect and see if my tiller is right. But I think one of them, yep, needs to come a tiny bit to the left. So I'm doing that, and now I'm going to shoot. That was my bad. In fact, when I shoot a very particular method, and I felt one of my fingers interfere with the string just as I went to release, which was really not right. And as I've said many times, when you're shooting for perfect accuracy, never adjust the bow or the arrows or any part of your kit if you made a mistake. Now that time, I know I took my time, I was very careful about my form, I aimed perfect, and I came on just a little to the right. I know that, but I hit it perfect at the elevation I wanted and just a touch to the right, guys. This is how you know your bow is set up. Now you might think I've got my best arrows, but those who are paying attention will notice these are not my best arrows. That is the best of the worst. So now we're going to try this one, and then we're going to try a bare shaft, because this is technically my worst arrow right now, you guys. Oh, so let me show you something and explain to you, because I just did that kind of on purpose. I do this a lot, obviously, but this is missing part of its nock. So if you're not careful, that's what's going to happen to you. It's going to go all over the place. So I'm going to be more careful. I'm going to aim. I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to launch it with careful aim, and it came down hard. So I'm going to flip the fletching on this big bird. I had that white fletching up. I'm going white fletching down, guys.
Oh, that wasn't too bad. That actually came out a lot more on target, more centered for sure. So now I'm going to aim very carefully that way, and I'm going to try it again with that white fletching down. Now this arrow is my worst one, partly because it is absolutely beat to hell. And actually, now I know I was a tiny bit off to the right there, but I was not that far off to the right. I know that from using a good arrow, the bow is actually seeming to be shooting just fine. So let's take a look at this. And you see this fletching? Guys, this fletching is so beat to hell, it's garbage. It's literally garbage. So I'm going to show you guys real quickly here, if I can find my scissors, what it is that I do when I have fletchings that are, well, beyond repair. This is beyond, I can just put this in a jig and bring it back to shape. It's got rips in it that are pretty extreme. And when you have one like that is ripped so badly, there's no real recovering that. There's no, oh yeah, it'll be okay. No, it's toast. It's had its day. It's done. So I'm going to show you guys what's going to happen here. And you'll see this fletching is about to live a whole new life of pain. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to cut it right here. And then I'm going to cut along here. But because this is not the best tool, you might think it is. It's really not. So here's what I'm going to do. It's going to look kind of messed up. But see where the damage is right here and right here? Watch this. I'm going to take this very sharp knife, guys. I'm going to lay it down just in front of that, like this. It's sharp, sharp too. And I'm going to put my finger underneath to make sure I don't slip. And then I'm just going to roll this whole fletching perfectly around. Check this out. You're going to like this. And now I'm going to come gently down and skim each of those unwanted fletches off of here to where it's damaged. And now you're going to see I have these little short fletches that won't interfere with anything, and they're going to be awesome. And then I'll have a new design. In fact, I was going to do one like this before, and I ended up not, and I'm glad I didn't. I thought, no, there's something wrong with this shaft. I know it. I stripped the fletchings to see, and I was right. So now we have another new fletching type. So I'm going to make this a little smoother and get rid of some of this crud. Doesn't have to be perfect for now, but later I'll want it that way. So I'm going to just do it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be close. All the junk has to be gone. I don't want any extra plastic weight that far back on the arrow. In fact, I'm going to re-weight it anyway and add some more weight to the tail after. But for now, I have a sneaking suspicion that this one was damaged so bad the fletchings were wrecked on it day one. And I could have done this then. So again, we're going to go white fletch up as it indicates on the original testing I did with this arrow that that's how it should be. And we're going to fire it dead center. Let's see what happens. Ooh, kinky, came off way right. Way right. And I mean way right. There could be reasons for that. Like this knock being totally ruined, guys. It may never ever fire right again. So we're going to go and put that white fletching down, like I said, because it seems to be the most accurate way since I redid the fletchings, no matter what I do. And then I just let one rip. And I was close to the target. I was basically on it. And then I came up a little bit and left, and that was that. So I'm going to be very careful and see with the red fletchings up if we have this correct. Ooh, nice. Look at that. I pinned it right to it, guys. Look at that. Okay. So that's pretty good. I actually did hit the end of the carrot and bring it down. So that's not so bad. Just don't forget, when it hits the carrot, it deflects, right? So that was actually really good. And the fact that it did that is great. Now we just need to see if we can reproduce it. But this is by far my worst arrow. So if it can dead center a target like that repeatedly with my absolute worst arrow, which it clearly can. Now you just saw me repeat that exact same shot. Remember I said we were going to cut this in half? Well, look at that. We're pretty darn close, you guys. Now I'm just going to aim for this tiny little point right here. And you're going to say, well, geez, buddy, aren't those your worst arrows? And I'm going to say, yes, sir, they are. But they're pretty darn good. And now that the fletching is corrected, this no longer really and truly belongs as my worst arrow. In fact, it is coming on straighter than the other arrow. Not quite, but it's coming on almost exactly the same. So, that means we've definitely fixed the fletching, and it also means the fletching that I've put on is functional. It works well, just as well as the larger fletching. But that was its design, guys, to turn less airflow into more rotation by being more effective, but shorter. And that's a bare shaft, guys. And as you can see, the bare shaft had no problem punching that target. I aimed high. It came almost exactly centered. Now this is why, no matter what's happening with these arrows, whether I hit or miss, I do not make changes to this bow. It's perfect. It's locked in, and I knew that already. Which means, if something's not right, I no longer look to the bow. I know it's not my form, so what is it? What does it leave? It's in the chain of events, right? There's only one thing that could possibly be left, and it's the arrow. But as long as you have a good arrow, now this one got stripped of its fletchings for a reason. It has a significant warp. And while it is pretty accurate some of the time, it's also really inaccurate other times. That is to say, when the warp is facing the right direction, it doesn't seem to matter to the flight of the arrow one tiny bit. When it's the other way, it throws it off so much it's my worst arrow, and I had to get rid of it. And as you can see, without that, it comes on dead center. Came on great, no problem. But it is not as accurate as either of these fletched arrows because the shaft is warped. If it wasn't, it would still not be quite as good at this distance because the bare shaft on its own, being this nose heavy, tends to want to nosedive. And so I'm right at the range when I shoot where it just would start to show that it's really nose heavy. But not really show. I mean, it only shows really bad at long range. And look at that. I mean, it may be a little off, guys, but it's close. Well, this is my point. This is why I removed it from service. Because close isn't good enough. Close was never good enough. It has to be precise. It has to be good enough that I can smoke the center of the target with that and get a bullseye as often as I aim for it. And if I goddamn well want to Robin Hood an arrow, I want to be able to Robin Hood an arrow. And that implies that everything is perfect and consistent, from your form to the bow itself to your actual aim point to everything to do with the bow, its setup, the arrow, and its setup. If all that is correct, you should know it when you're firing indoors. One of the reasons I really like indoor archery to set up your setup is because you don't have to worry about wind. I never have to account for it. I know it's not going to throw my flight off. I know there's no super magic gravity happening that's special in this room than in any other. As long as I'm indoors, I can count on the fact, and most tournaments now happen indoors, which means if I go back to tournaments, I'm better off dialing it in without the wind anyway. Anyway, this video is getting kind of long, guys. I have been shooting and setting up and testing this new quiver. And as you can see, guys, I think it's really not bad. I did say we'd end by cutting this in half. And I gotta tell you, we're really, really close, guys. Look at that. I put a hole right through the dead center of it, guys. And that's where the bare shaft. Now the problem with the bare shaft is, because it's not as good, like look at the other arrows, I could hit that shot first time. This one, it took me 5 times because of that warp. It's very inconsistent. But because I know it's inconsistent, and I know its tendencies because I know its warp, I know when I shoot it, whether I'm seeing its tendencies or not. For example, when I shoot that one on the other bow, it's actually more accurate. I hit with it 2 out of 3 times, and it seems like the shaft's not really bent at all. But because the shelf on that one isn't perfect, it's bumping the arrow at just the right point to kind of counteract that. And it's a case of one imperfection correcting another, because they counteract each other. I don't want any of that. I want my bow set up flawlessly. And that means it has to be able to pinpoint targets just like that and put it right through. From a bare shaft to a shallow fletching that's a custom one I've made to a standard fletching, whatever it is, it needs to be able to fire them all and fire them accurately. And believe it or not, if it can't, it's not a very good bow. And a really great bow, and this is the other part of that, why I'm not changing the blue one, a really great bow will be able to make less accurate stuff slightly more accurate because it's firing them perfectly. That's a fact. And these both have that ability where they will take this shaft that is warped, and every once in a while they'll still produce a perfect shot. And they keep it pretty close to accurate. In fact, I have other bows that don't fire these particular arrows very well at all. So, in the last video, we saw how the other bow handled my best, and in this video, we're going to see how it handles my worst, because I still have this bow set up, and I don't have my best arrows. So since we ended with the bare shaft last time, we're going to start with it this time. This one's knocked opposite of the other one, where you come on top of the knock, not below. And unfortunately, because the sight's not in yet, that was really neat, and it came on dead center perfect, guys, really nicely. But this shelf has been shot many times. It's been dialed in very precisely, very smoothly, and I've redone it, and, well, not really redone it, but just kept checking it and tweaking it and tweaking it. Right now, this is my most accurate bow, guys, okay? As far as my light bows go, but I came to realize that's for a reason, guys. And the reason is these arrows really don't like a really high poundage bow. In fact, the highest powered bow that they seem to really like being in is about 50 pounds. And even then, that seems to be a bit of a stretch for them. They seem to like the other thing. Sorry about that, I had the fletching turned the wrong way around. But now, as you can see, we have corrected that problem. We're putting up a nice group, and it's centered on target pretty much. And this is my worst set of arrows, guys. And if this is my worst arrows, well, if I start shooting at you, you might just want to run. And do me a favor, run me a zigzag pattern, will you? Because those are always way more entertaining. Anyway, I'm going to turn that white fletch down now. I'm just verifying that on each bow, it is best to fire with my red fletches up, and it does seem that way. Oh yeah, that was nice. I actually aimed a little low, because with the sight I can't see, and I didn't want to hurt my arrow, but it came in pretty centered, and it came in right about where I was aiming. So red fletches down for sure, and here we go. I'm going to nail right where I want it, hopefully. Oh yeah, top center. It's close. I wanted it right top center. I'm actually trying really hard to cut this in half, but to do that I would have to hit it here. What do you think the odds are of me coming from the top and hitting that? Well, let's find out. I'm going to be aiming for that spot. It's like the hardest shot ever in the world. And I didn't even really think. I just pulled the trigger to see if I could hit it. I came very close though. I mean, I'm trying to hit here, guys, and this is where the arrow hits. So I was very close there. So let's try that again. I love little shooting challenges like this, guys. You set yourself up these kind of shooting challenges, and you can have a lot of fun with yourself. Just shooting and entertaining yourself for hours on end, guys. And it's a good workout too, you know? Anyway, so here we go. Oh yeah, I heard that hit. And that, my good clean friends, is why I don't like doing that kind of stuff. So, I'm pretty damn good. And the fact that I even made that shot to here and got it in between like a perfect TP, that was pretty freaking good if you ask me. But I still haven't nailed this shot, because to do it right, I actually have to come down in between the two of my arrows. That's pretty freaking hard. But I ain't the quitter, so let's try that shit one more time. Interesting. Well, I did come in really close. I did say I wanted to come in on top and down in between, and well, I don't suck. I know what I'm doing, and I came really close. and I did impact that. So I'm actually going to pull this one out, and I'm going to try again, because this is the one I just fired. It was close, but it wasn't there. Obviously, you can see that. So let's try this again. Because I don't want to flip and flame. Yeah, I want to nail my shot, damn it. Alright, so again, we came up pretty high here. I did aim high, though. So I'm going to take my time and aim really carefully. And I mean really, really carefully. Ooh, I aimed a bit low there. And I am trying to aim left, so that was really close. I'm going to try again. But don't forget, this literally is, and pretty much from moment one, it and the other one like it were my two worst arrows. And I don't mean my fletchings, I mean there was a slight warp going on there. Oh, you know what I think I did? I think I put it underneath instead of above, like the other one. Yeah, I did so. I could tell right away. As soon as I shot it, it came on dead accurate. So again, it's actually hit where it's moved the carrot down. That's great. So in the end, this is pretty accurate for my worst 3 arrows. And I can play a fun game like this where I strike a 2-inch target. And I'm pretty much going to play this little game with myself for hours. Why? Because it's fun. And it's challenging. And as you can see, I mean, you can say worst arrows all you want, but dude, they're consistently coming out in a group this big. And that's to put my hand around here. So, I mean, they may come out at slightly different trajectories, but at the end of the day, they were literally in the hole almost the size of the 3 shafts put together. So, you know, that's not highly accurate, maybe, but it's also not highly inaccurate. In fact, that's bloody epic, if you ask me, for something that I made at home, and those are my worst arrows, guys. I mean, how much better does it get than that, really? Now, it's not a Hoyt, okay? I didn't, you know, spend $3 grand, and I can't see a cheap Hoyt bow anymore. Now, I know that they still technically have them. There's, hold on. Boy. There is a line that Hoyt has, and that Masters have, that are basically their entry-level lines. So obviously, after shooting carrots, guys, or potatoes or anything like that, I'm going to take these, I'm going to wipe them down, that helps anyway. Now this is about to be another bare shaft, this one, because look, my piece that holds on the fletchings came off, and I'm actually just going to put a new one on and seal it and continue to use this one. But this one's pretty much had its day, and were in the hands of anybody else, it would have been garbage already. But I've now extended its lifespan with this modification, and it still works. It's still pretty accurate, but it is still my least accurate arrow. Except that it's not. It's more accurate than the bare shaft. It takes less times to hit the target. It'll hit the target every time. It's just a matter of where. It's not the most accurate or consistent, but it's my worst arrow. This is the best arrow of the worst, which is why it goes into the spot of honor. Now this one is the bare shaft. It goes to the bottom, because you might think, but it doesn't. Now I did want to point out one more thing. This one, unlike the other one, because I've made an insert here, and the insert separates the two. So now, they can't just move around, and they are locked together. So now the whole setup is much more tight. They don't clank. This is a real samurai setup. They make no noise. It's deadly quiet. When you're hunting, it's brilliant. So, this is it for this one, guys. As you can see, the bow is quite good no matter which bow I take. But that little takedown bow really kind of takes the cake with these arrows. But it's because it's coming out at 35 pounds, guys. And that's such a nice weight to fire these arrows at. So I'm going to say if you're getting these arrows, you're going to want to look between 35 and 45 pounds. I find anything toward 50 pounds, you're really starting to push the limits of these arrows. Which is about the same as the Barnetts. Not quite. The Barnetts, even at 35 pounds, I was destroying them. Whereas at 35 pounds, these ones feel like I'm slightly underpowering them, and they've got more chutzpah. When I put them on a 70-pound bow, though, they feel overpowered, and just drawing it, I'm bending it. But at a 50-pound bow, which is what the other one is, I didn't see any of that, and I can draw it. It's 55 at its full draw length, which is like well, at 29 and a half, it's right at that 55 pound mark, or 29, sorry. And I drew it right out to 29, and it fires really nicely at that poundage with these, and I don't see the arrow actually flexing on me, which is really good. But anything higher than that, 55 pounds or so, I do absolutely see that. And so what I'm going to say is, because I use a paracord string, guys, they're not as hard kicking the arrow in the ass as a regular bowstring. So if I'm able to do 55 on this bow, you're going to want to do 50 on a regular bow. So I'm rating these for 50 pounds. That's a good rating for them. And for the spine of them, it's perfect. You're running like I am with that bow, 50 pounds. I find the spine works nicely, and it's pretty accurate. They're actually really good. But I also find at 35, 38, 40, they're absolutely in their happy spot. And they just seem to really soar nicely at that. And I get the impression that they're more made for, call it 45 on the high side. And that really means they're still rated about probably 10 pounds higher than the Barnett ones, is what I'm thinking. And that feels right in my heart, kind of thing, after many months of shooting the other ones, a couple of months anyway, and a week of shooting these ones. I know enough. I've shot tons and tons and tons of times during that time, developing fletchings and doing all this stuff and tuning in my bows for these arrows. But now that's done, they're all so locked in for the ones that are finished that I don't have to worry about missing the target. It's just a matter of how tight am I in a group. Is it a 1-inch group or is it a 2-inch group? 2-inch group is a bad day with my worst arrows. Keep that.